Hello everyone, welcome back to a new video. Today we'll be continuing on with the Louisville crash update with the UPS MD-11. Got 2 videos to go over. We got this one from Captain TV that 3 days ago. Now, and then we're gonna react to this one from just 9 hours ago. Alright, let's do this.
New images now emerging of that horrific explosive crash, a UPS cargo jet seconds after takeoff from Louisville, Kentucky. At least 12
that was
people
definitely
killed,
horrific.
including all 3 on board, 9 people on the ground.
Investigators say the cargo jet, fully loaded with fuel, managed to clear the fence at the end of the runway, but
Good job.
banked to the right and slammed to the ground, hitting several businesses.
The website FlightAware also says that this specific plane was grounded for over a month recently, likely for maintenance.
Well, we've got a major update on UPS 2976, the crash out of Louisville, Kentucky, of that MD-11, and there's been some numerous news reports about it. The NTSB has reported. We've got new video for you, and I'm going to tell you.
Okay, new video is always good.
This aircraft didn't climb, and there's a video I'm going to show you that's pretty definitive of why this airplane didn't fly. So for the last 48 hours. I've been scratching my head looking at the video over and over again. I've talked to dozens of commercial airline pilots and saying these airplanes are supposed to climb on 2 engines, even with a fire over on the left side. That video we saw just a couple of days ago.
Yeah.
Why in the world did this airplane not climb out? Well, there's a real good reason why it didn't climb out. We'll show you what that reason is here in a minute. The NTSB just got in front of the camera, and they've got some of their initial discoveries or findings from the crash. One of the things that we showed you on the first video was that we thought the left engine, the number 1 engine, had actually separated from the aircraft because we had a picture of it laying over on the side of...
Wait. Okay. I'm just speculating here. Just from only 1 minute 39 seconds in. What if the left end did not separate? And by the way, I have not watched this video before. This is my first time watching with you guys. What if the engine did not separate? What if it had like a explosive decompression, like explosive blowout, where like the cowling exploded, but the engine was still there?
The runway, and I think I told you on that last video, I wasn't
stupid. I know
about that because you can Photoshop these things. And it hadn't been verified independently. Well, now it's been verified by all the major news agencies and the NTSB.
Okay.
They actually retrieved the engine, and they've got it in a warehouse. One of the things that...
Okay, so the statement I just made was completely utter bullcrap. My bad.
The NTSB does in their investigative process after the fact is they will actually collect every fragment of this airplane, and they will put the airplane completely back together in a huge warehouse. It's absolutely incredible the depth that they go into to get to exactly what happened in order to make sure that it never happens again, because our hearts are broken for these families.
Yeah.
And you have to remember there's real...
Like, I don't really show real emotion except from like horniness, happiness, of course. Sometimes I fake being happy, but I don't really show real emotions on camera, if you know what I mean. But when I first saw that crash, that hit a part of me that had not been hit in a while. That was just generally, like honestly, that hit me. I was expecting like a bad crash, maybe like a small fire, not that size of a fire. That was generally shocking to me, and I actually think I shed a few tears. I genuinely feel bad for all the people who were affected by it. That's just like, imagine you think driving home from work, you see this plane that just came down, and you see a giant fireball. I'm like, please, like, and you notice it's in the air, like, please don't let it be. Please let my loved ones be safe. And then you find out that they're gone because of this. That's just one of the most heartbreaking things you can imagine. And like, and if it happened to you, I bet you would be heartbreaking as well. Oh my, I'm actually starting to up of it. But yeah, this is very serious stuff. Yeah, just sad.
people behind all of this. And as you're looking at these really horrific images of this tragic accident, there are real families attached to all this. We want to be respectful to that process.
Yeah.
And the NTSB is certainly respectful to that process as well. So let me recap where we are on UPS 2970.
NTSB is the good guys.
And then I'm going to tell you why that airplane never got airborne. We've got video for you, and it's pretty definitive as to why. But UPS 2976, Louisville, Kentucky to Honolulu, Hawaii. They're
never got to Honolulu.
carrying about 220,000 pounds of fuel altogether. That's about 34,000 gallons of fuel. That's a lot of fuel. They're at their most critical phase of flight, the takeoff. I explained that on the last video. They're the heaviest they're ever going to be. They're most fueled up they're ever going to be. They've got the power all the way full forward, so they don't have a lot of reserve power to call on, and they're fully configured. The landing gear is down. All the flaps are down to initially get airborne. You see the airplane, I'll show you that video again, in super slow-mo this time. You see them initially try to get off the ground, but they limp and they don't quite get up in the air. I'll explain why that happened. But right at what's called V1, and V1 is a speed that the
the decision speed.
computer on the airplane actually calls out for us. It's one that
I explained this in the last video of mine.
we calculate ourselves as the pilots, but at V1, that's the go, no-go speed. In other words, you don't have enough runway left in front of you to reject the landing. That's the technical expression for it.
You reject the takeoff.
To stop on the pavement in front of you. So once you hear V1, every commercial pilot is trained that you continue to fly. You keep the power full up and you roll until you can lift that airplane off the ground, and it might limp into the air, but it's going to fly and it's going to take off in the runway.
Not always. You would see by this.
You're not trained to reject the takeoff after V1. What we clearly know from this incident, since they go off the runway at 184 knots, is that they were past V1 because they do not attempt to reject the takeoff. If they'd gotten on the brakes and pulled the power back, they would have slowed down significantly. They would have hit the same buildings, but they would have been going slower. That's neither here nor there. They're not trained to do that. They're trained to take off in that scenario. So somewhere between V1 and rotate, they have this catastrophic failure of the number one engine. Now, the engine, as we know, separated from the aircraft. And, what we don't know is what happened to one of the other engines, and I'm going to explain that in a minute. The number one engine actually comes off the airplane. Now, there's a couple of reasons it could have come off. One is, in this aircraft design, the MD-11 and the DC-10, I flew the DC-10 for a long time.
Okay.
The DC-10
did not know that.
Notorious, and there was an accident back in the 70s where a pylon failed, and the pylon is that attachment to the wing on top of the engine. So you get the big engine underneath, you get the pylon on top. And it failed on a DC-10 back in the 70s, and I think we're going to do another video comparing these two in the future. But the engine actually came off the aircraft. Same sort of thing you see here. It wasn't on the ground. It was actually airborne. I think they were at about 500 feet. Now,
this Delta 191. Is that Delta 191? Hold on. No, wait. With American Airlines. Yeah, American Airlines. I'm getting Delta and American. I don't know why. That was American. American Airlines Flight 191. Yeah, that was in 70, so that's maybe what he's talking about.
That the ADS-B data said the airplane got up to 400 feet. It did not get up to 400 feet. You can see that in the video. ADS-B data is notoriously the way off when you're on the ground, right? Once it gets up to about 400 or 500 real feet, then it's really, really accurate up to that point. But when you're on the ground, it's not accurate. You can see from the videos that the airplane doesn't get more than about 50 feet total. Now, the nose of the aircraft might be at 150 feet, but the actual stuff that hit anything was down around 50 feet or so. So at any rate,
so like, during this time, where's the real altitude? Like, what part of the plane's the real altitude? Like, I'm like, and that's the general question I have. Like, where the altitude like measured? Because like, if you're like slanted because like you're taking off, you're getting altitude. But you have to be getting, you know what I mean? Like, I like the altitude like being measured from like the middle of the plane. You know?
The engine could have separated for any number of reasons. It could have been a catastrophic failure of the engine that caused the pylon to fail and the engine came off. Or it could have been the pylon failed, which caused a catastrophic failure of the engine. Either way, it could have happened. There's a lot of people that think it's most likely the pylon because they had pylon failures in the past with those airplanes. However, the pylon failures in the past were due to high lateral G factors on those pylons. In other words, the airplane got sideways with the airstream and the G's on the side, pushing on the side of those pylons, caused the engine to come off. Right, this airplane, as I can see from the video, and you can see it's going straight forward, right down the runway. So I don't think it was a pylon failure. I think it was actually the engine that failed, and that engine, when it failed, caused the number 3 engine to fail. I'm going to show you a video here proving that in
because 200 fail. Oh.
in just a second. So that number 3 engine, which is the engine on the right wing, remember there's 3 engines on an MD-11. So the one on the left wing is number 1, the one on the tail is number 2, the one on the right wing is number 3. Let's take a look at the video now in question, and we're going to slow this thing down and we're going to isolate it because you're going to see something that's called a compressor stall. On that number 3 engine. It's real quick. Remember Air India 171? And one of the theories that came out initially about the dual engine.
The way I found out of it, okay, I know it's a very serious incident. I know there's only one survivor. I'm sorry for all the loved ones that were lost. But the way I found out about it was I was going on YouTube one day. I don't remember why. Just going on YouTube, and I saw both Mental Pilot and Air and Range both streaming 191 like 171. My bad. I saw American Airlines 191 in my head, sorry. And I saw them both saying, yo, something must be up. So I click on the Air and Range stream. Oh shit, we just had another plane go down. It's like speculation over the next few weeks. It's like insane how fast these things spread nowadays.
Engine failure was it could have been a compressor stall, and I said there was no evidence of a compressor stall because you can see it, right? Little rings of fire will come out of the back of the engine if there's a compressor stall, and you hear it because the engine is real loud. It goes pop, 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 right? You can hear it for miles. There was nothing like that on Air India 171. Watch this now. This is the UPS 2976 rolling down the runway. Here they go. We're going to zoom in on them, and right there, I'm going to stop the video.
Oh,
see on the right side of the airplane.
I just saw that.
You see that flame coming out? All right, that is characteristic of a compressor stall. So what that means is that engine is failing. Now, is it just coincidental that the number 3 engine is failing at the same time that the number 1 engine has departed the aircraft? No, I think
that would have to be a very, very, very slim coincidence.
It's a big stretch to say that that was a coincidence.
No, big stretch.
That the number 1 engine, when it came apart, somehow did damage to the number 3 engine. I'll show you a schematic here in a minute that shows
Bluetooth damage, be real.
How easy that is to happen. So I think the two are absolutely related. That big fireball you see in this picture over the left wing is fuel that's being pumped into an engine that's not there anymore. That engine is already separated from the aircraft, and that fuel is being pumped out. There's a fire started, and that big old fireball is because of that fuel. What's going on in the cockpit right now? What's happening is this. When they started their takeoff roll, they were clear for takeoff. Everything was normal. The next thing that the 2 pilots do, the pilot flying and the pilot monitoring, is they do an airspeed accuracy check at 80 knots. So the pilot monitoring will say 80 or 80 knots. And then the pilot flying will look down at their instrumentation and the other one, and they see 80. The airspeed is good. That's the first check. The next thing we're waiting for is for the computer-generated voice to say V1. At that point, they're at the no-go spot on the runway. go, no-go spot on the runway, and they've got to now continue flying. They can't reject the aircraft with the runway remaining. Somewhere after V1 and somewhere between that and rotate, they had this catastrophic failure. And it could have been simultaneous.
Why didn't we have like the video from like beforehand? Before the fire? Like all I see now is just the fire from like start to end.
Rotate, because the next thing after V1, the pilot flying is waiting for the pilot monitoring to say rotate. And that's a speed that's calculated for every single flight based on your gross weight, the length of the runway, density, altitude, a whole bunch of other things are factored in. He's going to say rotate. You can see this MD-11 is clearly trying to rotate. The nose is way up. And so the way we do it is you just gently pull back on the yoke. You get the nose wheel to come off the ground and you set an attitude. You don't pull it off the ground, right? Because you'd strike the tail. So you just set an attitude just like they've got. That's a perfect climb out attitude right now in that airplane. Now you're going to let the thrust and the lift you up off and you start climbing. Once you get up to 50 feet or 100 feet, you ask for the gear up, you clean up the airplane, you climb even more dramatically. These guys are attempting to get to that place, but something's wrong. They should be climbing out on 2 engines. The reason they're not climbing out
is compressor stall.
Compressor stall on the number 3 engine. They've only got 1 engine that's fully functioning for them. So how much thrust is coming out of that number 3 engine? It's reduced.
Not enough.
That's all I know. The report
Not enough.
or at the end of the year will say exactly how much thrust was coming out or not coming out of that number 3 engine. But the investigators now going forward are going to concentrate on that number 3 engine. And part of our reporting here will help them focus in on the stuff they need to focus in on. Let me continue with the video. You're going to see a couple more little pops out of this engine. They're real quick, but it's characteristic of that compressor stall. It goes pop, 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 right? Watch it. Here it comes. All right, the flame goes out, but there's one, and there's another one. Those 2 little flames right there. Those are
that is just generally scary. There's fireball. When I see the fireball on the plane, the first thing I saw when I first saw the video of like the fireball on a plane, I'm like thought Air France 4590, the crash of the Concorde, if you know what that is.
It's not stalling. The cameraman turns away. He comes.
And the famous line, F 4590, you have flames behind you. That fire on the aircraft is scary.
Back to the aircraft, and we see the fire.
Pilot's not worst nightmare.
I'll show you a different angle here now from a dash cam that really kind of explains much better and in much more detail what's going on, but I'll get to that in a minute. I want to show you a diagram of the engine and what happens with these engines.
Okay, we are back. I'm sorry, I just had to get my throw on. Okay, we're good.
All right. So here's a diagram of the GE CF6 engine. That's the engine that's on the MD-11. I flew this engine for many years. It's the same engine that's on the 767. 23 and a half years of flying the 767. Very reliable engine.
23 and a half years. That's respectable. Respect the grind.
But a jet engine is a pretty simple beast. It's got a whole bunch of what's called blades, and they're compressor blades.
Yep, we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
If you will, lack for a different name for them. There's the fan in the front that's doing the bypass air around the engine, also throwing air into the main part of the jet. But all of those blades, they're razor sharp, and they start out big in the front, and they get smaller and smaller and smaller so that they compress the air. So they're taking the ambient air outside and they're compacting it. And then it gets back to the burner section where they introduce fuel, and they light that fuel with that compressed air, and you get all that thrust out of the back of the engine.
That's insane.
There are literally thousands of these razor sharp blades spinning at thousands of RPM. So in the N1 section, they're spinning at about 3,800 RPM. In the N2 section of the engine, they're spinning at about 11,000 RPM. If any one of those blades comes apart or departs what it's doing, and in this case, I think it's pretty clear that the number one engine totally came apart. So let's say there's hundreds or even thousands of blades now spewing out in all directions. It's like a 50 millimeter machine gun just going off, shooting into the other engine. Now, let me show you another schematic of the aircraft from above. And this diagram of the MD-11 doesn't give you the exact perspective, but those two engines, the one on the left side and the one on the right side, actually sit underneath the fuselage a little bit. So there's actually a direct line from one engine to the other. If you were to get down there and look at it from side to side, it's, you know, the fuselage bottom of the fuselage would be here, and the midline of the engine would be right about here. So as that engine that's spinning comes apart, those blades can go straight and hit the other engine. They can also hit the ground and ricochet up into the other engine. They're going so fast and they're so
in the sky, that might not be likely, but again, this is during takeoff, so yeah, they're pretty low to the ground.
sharp. They can go right through the fuselage and into the other engine. I've flown 2, 3, and 4 engine aircraft. And
Damn.
The 4 engine aircraft that I flew, the P3, there were accidents over the years where the number 2 engine on the left side actually destroyed the number 3 engine on the right side because of that exact same thing. The blades came apart. Some of them even went through the fuselage, kept going out the other side, and hit the other engine. That's the violence that they're flying. So it's like almost like a machine gun. So that is a possibility of what could have happened to cause the compressor stall on the right side.
Okay.
And the investigation is going to tell you definitively whether that's true or not.
And we're looking forward to that.
Compressed
We want answers.
Thousands of blades. We talked about that. All right. Why did they crash? Why didn't they get into the air, and why did they crash? Let's take a look at this other angle, because I want to show you here something that is just shocking. I'm going to show you this first one in full speed, and this happens real quick. This is from a dash cam of a car. You're going to see a couple of flashes of light. I'll explain what that is. It's not the compressor stalling. All right, but watch this. It goes real fast. Boom. There it goes from left to right. Now, let's do that one in super slow-mo, and we're going to go frame by frame with this video.
Okay.
I want you to see everything that you need to see here on why this airplane crashed.
I'm looking.
Still got the nose lifted up. They haven't raised the gear yet. They're too busy. What happened at...
I don't think the gear... Look, I'm raising the gear would have done anything. Also, it would have been too slow.
The point of failure was that the master caution light in front of the...
Also, yeah, like, during situations, look, raising the gear is not high on the priority list. Like, the thing is like this. I know it's a bit dramatic, but, like, what would you rather do? Raise the gear or risk the lives of passengers? Again, I know it's a bit dramatic, but this example.
Pilot flying came on. It lights up. The bells went off in the airplane, and so every fire in the airplane is a bell. So you've got alarm bells going off. The screens in front of them are lit up with all of the malfunctions, and there are numerous ones. It's not just the engine failure. Every other system related to that engine lit up on that screen. All they know is that they hear something's going on. They can feel it in the aircraft. The co-pilot, the pilot monitoring, calls rotate. The pilot at the controls pulls the nose back. He's probably pushed those 3 power levers up for all they're worth as far as they can go. The number 1 engine's already separated from the aircraft. That would be devastating if you're flying the airplane, and he's got the nose off, and now the pilot at the controls is going, why won't this thing climb? Because he's in that attitude where it should be lifting off, and it's just not climbing. What he doesn't know is he's getting reduced thrust, and probably greatly reduced thrust, out of that number 3 engine, and the airplane isn't going to fly. These guys are true heroes. They're valiantly trying to get this aircraft.
Just like the pilots for Alaska Airline 261, they fought until the very end. All the way down to the ocean.
Into the air and away from all of those buildings and those wires, but it just won't fly. It doesn't have enough lift because it doesn't have enough thrust. So let's go frame by frame through this, and I'll stop it in the middle to show you what you're looking at. Here it comes into the picture, and right here, I'm going to stop it. You see that first flash? All right. What you see behind it, all right, is that the number one engine is missing. It's just totally gone. Over on the right side, you see the engine, right? It's pretty clear to see it, but there's nothing on the left side. So it's already departed. It's way back off on the runway. You can't really see any flames coming out of that right engine, but that doesn't mean that the compressor isn't stalling. The compressor stall doesn't always have flames coming out of the back. The other one was pretty definitive that it was.
Yeah, I can see the flames from a mile away.
Stalling. It's going pop, 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 and it's the air compressor inside of it, the compression of the air inside of it getting backed up, and it's causing like a backfire in the engine. That first spark that you see right now, that's the first high tension wire that they hit. Let's continue on.
That power surge, I think, what they call it.
Right there, you can definitely see in that frame right there, there's no left engine at all. They're starting to dip a little bit to the left. It's just subtle, but they're starting to turn a little bit to the left because they're getting a little bit of thrust out of that right side engine, nothing out of the left. And the pilot's probably got full rudder in, and the airplane's starting to go over at this point. All right, and you see it kind of go off the frame. You see another spark here in a second. It's probably more electrical wires, and the airplane finally goes out of frame as it crashes. There's another spark. It's another electrical wire, and it just descends into the buildings off of the frame. Very shocking to watch that happen.
That's just devastating.
But you can tell a lot by looking at those two videos. The number one engine is absolutely separated.
Not there anymore. It left the chat.
One and rotate. The NTSB said it got up to 400 feet. It didn't. You can see that from the picture right there. This is just seconds after it departed the runway. It never got up that high, maybe 40, 50 feet at the most. The pylon versus the engine discussion is it could have been one or the other. Either one would cause a catastrophic failure of the engine. I think the engine failed and destroyed the pylon. They haven't had pylon issues in these airplanes in decades. But it could have.
Decades. But does that mean that decades do not mean it can't happen again? No, that does not mean it can't happen again. It still should be a very real possibility.
Been the pylon. And then the second angle that we just looked at shows the separated engine. It shows the number 3 engine still stalling as they're going airborne, and then they're just simply unable to climb or sustain flight. So the left wing dips a little bit because there's zero thrust coming out of that left side. And the recap now of everything that we know up to this point based on the new video and looking and confirming that compressor stall was taking place on the right side. This airplane will not fly. It will not climb on one engine. It will not climb on one engine. It has to have two to do so. So the number 1 engine separated with a catastrophic failure. The number 3 engine was damaged with a compressor stall. As a result, the aircraft lurches to the left, and then the left landing gear impacts that first warehouse, and the airplane cartwheels over on its left side and knife edges into the ground, and then skids for, I don't know, almost a mile. They're still looking for people in the rubbish, the wreckage of this aircraft, and they're going to take their time doing that. But our hearts go out and our prayers for certain. We absolutely pray here. I just prayed with my director. I pray with the producer here on the channel all the time. He's my son. And we're people of faith and people of prayer. We prayed for those families. We continue to pray for the families.
I'm glad for that. We like some wholesome.
Do that as well. If any new updates come up, the NTSB gives us any new information, or there's new video that's revealing of anything else that is remotely connected to this, we will be right in front of the camera again to give you an update on it. But folks, I wanted to reassure you that this is what happened to this aircraft, and this is a freak accident. I've really never seen anything quite like this before. It's a one-off, really. It's kind of a unicorn of an accident, and hopefully it's a 1 in a billion. All right, but if we get any more updates, we'll let you know. Well, I'm Captain Steve, and now you know. We'll get back as soon as we can.
That is just devastating. Interesting new information. Sure, interesting new information. Also, my deepest regards do go out for all the families affected, and all the people affected by this. My strongest regards do go out to them. Because that's just something. I already know, man. It's like something you don't really want to happen, but unfortunately it does happen. Anyways, we got this other one. End of the MD. I can't speak. The end of the MD-11. FAA steps in after Louisville crash.
As NTSB investigators comb through wreckage of this deadly MD-11 cargo plane crash in Louisville, Kentucky, dozens of MD-11s now grounded by two of the nation's top parcel carriers, FedEx and UPS.
UPS and FedEx said they are grounding their fleets of McDonnell Douglas MD-11 planes, quote, out of an abundance of caution following a deadly crash at the UPS Global Aviation Hub in Kentucky.
All right, it looks like
I mean, that's a very good thing to do. Because even though in the last video, Captain Steve just said this is a 1 in a billion freak accident, it's always good to take precautions. NTSB and investigators always take precautions. Maybe too many, but they're necessary in some cases. Because you need to check every single thing, and you need to, like, as best the condition as possible. Otherwise, you might have wrong data. And wrong data could lead to things not being changed properly. So, yeah. But it's a caution.
the domino effect has begun with the MD-11 incident out of Muhammad Ali International Airport in Louisville, Kentucky. That horrific crash, the loss of life right now stands at 14, 3 on the airplane, 11 on the ground, still 9 people missing altogether. And over the weekend, UPS and FedEx both voluntarily grounded their fleet of MD-11 aircraft. We're going to talk about what...
Oh, so like they literally did it like themselves, not like because of FAA or something. Okay.
Sort of an effect that has. And then late this weekend, the FAA came out with an emergency airworthiness directive. I've got that here for you. I'm going to describe how that changes the picture on the MD-11 and what impact and what scope of impact does that have on you.
I mean, to be fair, I don't know why the MD-11 is still in service. It should have been put on the chopping block a long time ago.
And I, the traveling public, if any at all. So what's an emergency airworthiness directive? Well, it's right here, and the FAA issues these very sparingly. But when they do...
Not gonna lie, like, in terms of FAA, I was expecting it to be like maybe like a book. Yeah, like here, read this 500-page book, just like a directive.
They're done quickly. The word emergency is hugely important here. Other airworthiness directives are things that are deliberate, intentional, they take time, they have a public hearing period where the public can comment.
But like, I'm guessing for emergencies, it's like, you do this right now, like right this fucking now.
Boeing, Airbus, whoever can come in and give testimony, and lawyers, and those things sometimes take weeks or months to implement, and they would be like a longer term recall of something or some repair that needs to get made that's not in the public interest in terms of safety, but it is in terms of the long-term viability of a fleet to make sure that it does stay safe down the road. An emergency one, though, means that there's an immediate need, and as you could see from the footage of that airplane going off the end of the runway and that horrific fireball and crash, the left engine completely separated from the MD-11, and there's a history here, and that's the key. The history goes all the way back to the DC-10 and that terrible American Airlines.
If you do not know, the DC-10, well, the MD-11 is a successor to the DC-10. They pretty much look completely alike. Actually, I'm gonna bring a comparison up here. DC-10. This is MD-11. Alright, here. They literally look pretty much the same. Okay, here's a few differences. Winglets, okay. Also, we're ignoring like the big differences, like the liveries. This one's like the liveries, okay. Ignoring that, that's just too obvious. That just doesn't really matter. The other winglets are one. And yeah, it's a bit longer fuselage, a bit longer.
But the
Oh, here's another one. This is small. Yeah, MD-11 is guessing on the bottom. This one is definitely shorter. Also, if you don't know what winglets are, I'll give you a basic rundown. I'm gonna switch to camera for this. So, so there's two different airways going over the wing of the plane. There's one going under and one going over. And when they cross, when they come in contact with the wing, they cross into each other. Like, I don't really know how to do it with my hands. I kind of do it like this. I'm sorry, it's very bad visualization. And those create vortices on the edges of the wings. Now, if you do not have winglets on the airplane, the vortices can get bigger as you make the plane bigger. Like, if you put winglets on, like, say, the Airbus A380, the vortices would have been powerful enough to rip roofs off of houses to make a small airplane spiral out of control if it was in its wake. It would have been deadly. But since they put winglets on it, it's fine. It still makes vortices. I don't think there's really a way to, like, completely cancel out the vortices. But it makes them much smaller and like less dangerous. So yeah, kind of tangent. I know. This is my video. I like to make it educational. Wait, hold on. Let me go back to this.
Airlines 191 crash back in 1979 out of O'Hare.
Yeah, I was talking about that earlier.
500 feet, and the left engine came completely off the DC-10, causing the left slats to retract. That was a double failure, basically. It made things twice as bad on that airplane.
Yeah.
Not only did they not have the thrust.
If you don't know, slats are like the four parts of the wing, like the main wing, that can retract and when like extend and unextend. Extend and retract. That, yes, words. Inflate. I'm sorry. Extend, and that can increase the surface area of the wings to gather lift. They work together with the flaps, which are the trailing edge of the wings.
On the left side, and that tendency of the airplane to yaw from the right side.
Yeah, so like if you have like slats, ignoring flaps right now, let's say the flaps are fine. If you just have like the slats go back on one side of the wing, but on like the other side of the wing the slats are extended, they're fine. Yeah, it's gonna create some imbalance, because again, aerodynamics are everything with planes.
To the left into a left bank, but that left slat came up and the airplane just dipped, and 110 degrees later it impacted the ground. So there are concerns.
Yes, not time, just degrees.
Going all the way back to the late 70s with this type of aircraft design, the tri-jet, the MD-11 is basically the child of the DC-10, if you can think about it that way. What's an emergency airworthiness directive? Well, it's something that's put out immediately to ground the entire fleet. And let me read to you from the beginning of this airworthiness directive. Emergency airworthiness directive, and it's directed to the operators of the Boeing company, models MD-11 and MD-11 Foxtrot airplanes. So those two model airplanes have been grounded until further notice by the FAA. Why is it the Boeing company? I mean, I thought MD-11 was McDonnell Douglas. Well,
yeah.
The Boeing company bought or merged with McDonnell Douglas back in...
Of course they did. And how much... And I think I know why. Duct tape. I'm sorry, jokes aside.
The late 90s. And so it's been Boeing ever since. So did Boeing design and build the airplane? No. They inherited it, though, when they purchased the McDonnell Douglas.
Just like us inheriting grandpapa's inheritance after he passes away.
This
I'm sorry.
It gives you a little bit of a background. The emergency AD was prompted by an accident where the left-hand engine and, this is real important, I circled this, and the pylon detached from the airplane during takeoff. And then it goes on at the bottom of that paragraph to say this condition could result in loss of continued safe flight and landing. So they're really concerned about that pylon. The pylon was the issue back in the DC-10 era. They're concerned about it now. And I don't think they know. Exactly what happened yet. It's going to take a long time.
Tell me I was being an ass and just barged in.
Whether it was the pylon that failed, causing the engine to fail, or the engine failure caused the pylon to fail. Either way.
Hold on, let me go back before my dad just.
Was prompted by an accident where the left-hand engine and, this is real important, I circled this, and the pylon detached from the airplane.
Because the pylon detached as well, okay.
During takeoff. And then it goes on at the bottom of that paragraph to say this condition could result in loss of continued safe flight and landing. So they're really concerned about that pylon. The pylon was the issue back in the DC-10 era. They're concerned about it now. And I don't think they know exactly what happened yet. It's going to take a long time to determine.
I mean, yeah, this is still pretty new. This is still like I'm recording this on November 10th. It happened like November 4th, I think. Let me check. Wait, what? Okay, click the wrong one, but, Louisville, Kentucky as well. An A300, though. There we go. And November 4th.
Determine this. Whether it was the pylon that failed, causing the engine to fail, or the engine failure caused the pylon to fail. Either way, I know that the NTSB had come out and said initially in one of their on-camera interviews that the pylon was intact. It was still attached to the wing. So it could be either one. We're not going to know until either the preliminary or the 12-month report comes out of which it was the chicken or the egg in this case. It goes on in this report to say the FAA is issuing this AD because the agency has determined the unsafe condition, keywords now, is likely to exist or develop in other products of the same type design. So the entire fleet of MD-11s, at least nationwide, have been grounded. Now, if there's MD-11s that are being flown overseas, again, I think it would be in the best interest of those airlines to make sure that they ground those airplanes, but I don't think the FAA has authorization over them to ground those aircraft. Now,
like, that's the kind of thing I don't really understand about grounding. When grounding, I mean, I think like you're just grounding all the planes. I mean all of them. No matter if like you're in the US, Australia, China. I'm a bit far, I know, like, shut up. Yeah. Like all of them.
what's the scope of all of this? How many aircraft are we actually talking about? Well, we're talking about, at least from the UPS and FedEx world, we're talking about 9% of the UPS fleet. So they've got, the UPS has 27 of these aircraft.
Damn.
And out of those 27 aircraft, they've got a total of 292 airplanes. Comes out to roughly about 9%. That's a big hit. That's a big hit for UPS, especially coming into this busy holiday season. So I'm going to talk in a second about what do they do to make sure that their cargo gets transported during the busy holiday season. FedEx now owns 25 MD-11s out of their fleet of 382.
The world on time. I'm sorry, I just had to point that out.
Total airplanes. So FedEx is a little bit bigger than UPS. It's only 6.6% of their total fleet, but still, that's a big hit. And for them, in the wrong direction coming into the busy time of year. So normally this time of year, FedEx and UPS will surge, though they're out there looking for more capacity. Where do they get that extra capacity? They're going to get that extra capacity from American, Delta, United, Southwest, you name it, all the other airlines. They're going to look at some of the international haulers like World Airlines, Atlas, all of those. There's bunch of outfits that fly 747s. They're also busier during the holiday season as well. So if they have excess capacity, FedEx, UPS, and those, Amazon is another one that is going to buy up that extra capacity. So again, losing 9% of your fleet before you go into the busy season where you want to increase.
Yeah, kind of the worst time to do it, not gonna lie. Kind of the worst time for this to happen.
By 10, 15, maybe even 20% this time of year is a double whammy on UPS. Does it impact the passenger business? Is there anybody that flies the MD-11 with passengers in it anymore? The answer to that is no. The last airline to fly passengers in an MD-11 was KLM, and the last flight they had was October of 2014 where they carried passengers. Since then, all those MD-11s have been converted over to cargo hauling airplanes. Now, why did we stop flying passengers on the MD-11? Was it because it was unsafe? Nope. It just wasn't very efficient. I know at my airline, American Airlines, we bought not a lot, but we bought a few MD-11s in the 90s, and we only flew them for about 4 or 5 years, and then we sold them. I think they weren't happy with the product overall. I think they had some maintenance issues, and not like wings or engines falling off, but they had to keep up with them, right? And it was too much work. And it wasn't as fuel efficient as we had hoped for. And right about that time, in the mid-90s into the early 2000s, all the airlines were getting out of the 4 and 3 engine airplanes and into 2 engine airplanes, much more efficient. Let me give you an example of a trip from Louisville, Kentucky to Honolulu, which was UPS 2976. They're going to carry on an MD-11 220,000 pounds of gas to get out there and have all their reserve fuel when they get there. A typical 760.
Also, if you're wondering, if you're not an aviation nerd like me, you're wondering what do you mean by reserve fuel? Well, that's because it's not expected for sure it's normal for you to take off, cruise, and then land at the airport. Sometimes that's just not always the case. Sometimes you do things called sometimes you have to do other things called holding patterns, where you circle above the airport, holding, waiting to land, because otherwise could I be a bunch of traffic coming in, or weather stuff like that, or other stuff. Or you're gonna have to do a diversion. All of these other things could also eats up fuel. So you need to make sure you have extra fuel on board in case these things happen. You don't just take the minimum amount of fuel you need just to get from point A to point B. You need to take the minimum amount of fuel you need to get from point A to point B, with options to point C and maybe point D, if you know what I mean.
67 is going to carry 165,000 pounds of gas.
Also, unlike a car where you fill it to the brim with gas, you don't really do that in planes. You only fill it up with what you need. Because a fully fueled plane all the time, that could severely limit your number of runways, airports they could take off from. Because more weight means more runway used to take off. Because you'll be slower to get to the speed you need to get to take off. And the heavier you are, the higher takeoff speed needs to be, because you need more air to go over the wings to generate more lift to get a heavier plane off the ground. See, all these things collide with each other, are dependent on each other, if you know what I mean.
About a third less. So it costs a third more to operate an MD-11.
I mean, a third more technically makes sense. MD-11 has 3 engines, 767 has 2 engines.
So do I believe that
Math.
UPS and FedEx are trying to get out of the MD-11 business? Probably. They voluntarily grounded their fleet over the weekend. Now, would they have done it coming into the busy holiday season? No, they probably would have done it sometime next year, not for safety reasons, but just for cost reasons. I think they're looking to get out of it. However, their hand has been forced by this emergency airworthiness directive. Let me continue to read here. At the bottom it says, this airworthiness directive authorizes agencies to forego notice and comment procedures for rules when the agency for good cause finds that those procedures are impractical, unnecessary, or contrary to the public interest. Okay, that's lawyer speak for we can implement this thing overnight and ground the entire fleet because we're concerned about public safety. That's
Okay,
exactly
that's a good reason. Not to say ground a random fleet because I wanted to. It's like because we're doing it and like out of safety. That's a good reason to.
I'm down here to say an unsafe condition exists that requires the immediate adoption of this emergency AD to all
Also, if you want to know what AD is, I think it's like a airworthiness directive. Yeah, airworthiness directive.
known U.S. owners and operators of these airplanes. So they just reiterated what they said in the earlier paragraph, that this is a safety issue. They've identified a safety issue, and they're going to ground the fleet to do the inspections necessary. On the last page, it talks about inspection and other actions. And under that paragraph, it says, as of receipt of this emergency AD, further flight is prohibited until the airplane is inspected, and all applicable corrective actions are performed using a method approved by the manager. The manager would be the FAA. All right, having said that, they're going to start now their long work of looking at this airplane and inspecting it and coming up with what the fix could be potentially. They've got to identify the problem first, and they've got to identify a fix. I think the MD-11 is going to be down for a very, very long time, and I think, this is just my guess on this, I don't think you're going to see the MD flying ever again. I think UPS and FedEx are probably going to retire that fleet of airplanes.
Again, like I said, like earlier, it should have been on the chopping block a long time ago. And they only took it on the chopping block to get rid of all the passenger versions. They should have just kept it on there and just got rid of it entirely. Because if they did, this probably would never have happened.
They'll go out this next year and they'll replace it with other types, probably 2-engine airplanes that do the same job for a whole lot less cost on their part.
Oh, I just wondering. Okay, interesting. Okay, Atlas Air Inc. What the fuck? It's an octopus, mate.
And they'll be done with the headache that basically is the MD-11 at this point.
Yeah, it is a fucking headache.
Airlines, and why do cargo haulers have so many different types of airplanes? Have you ever wondered that? I've wondered that many times, because at my airline there's, I don't know, 6, 7 different types of aircraft. And you think,
Steve, why? Why?
it would be much more efficient to have one airplane, or at least one manufacturer. Southwest is a good example. They fly only 737s. They don't fly any other.
Hold on. Knew it. They flew the 727.
Airplane, and so their training costs.
They used to. They used to fly 727. That's 737.
Their fleet composition. However, there's a danger that they run, and the danger is this: if the FAA ever comes out with an emergency airworthiness directive and they ground the entire 737 fleet,
Southwest is fucked.
Southwest is out of business. And when the MAX was grounded,
same with Ryanair.
It was grounded for what, I think 7 or 8 months. It was a long time that the MAX was grounded. It might have even been longer than that, but at any rate, it was grounded for a long time, and Southwest would not have survived that. Having diversification in your fleet, it's survivable to have one aircraft.
Oh my god, this Delta fleet. Okay, we've got 747-451, 747-2518 2B. Sorry, my bad. Boeing 777-232 ER/LR. Boeing 767-432 ER. Boeing 767-332. Boeing 767-332-ER. ER. Okay, can we go in order, please? Jesus Christ. Got 767-332.ER. Hold up. Got the Boeing 757-351. Got the Boeing 757-2QBAC8. Got a 757-232. 737-832. 737-732. Got the Embraer ERJ145LR, Bombardier Regional Jet CRJ200ER, Bombardier Regional Jet CRJ700, Bombardier Regional Jet CRJ900ER, McDonnell Douglas DC-9-32, and McDonnell Douglas DC-9, some DC-9s, MD-88, MD-90, didn't know that existed, learning new things today. Embraer ERJ170. Okay, before we go on, why is it look cursed for Delta's livery beyond 737? I don't know. And also we got the Embraer ERJ, A319, A320. A30 and A330s. The butter machine.
Type grounded for a certain period of time over another one because you can continue to operate. It also ups your cost because you're flying Airbus and Boeing and different types of airplanes. It also limits for Southwest what they can do. They're pretty much just a domestic airline because the 737 has limited legs. It can't fly, to.
Yeah, that's why Ryanair doesn't come to the U.S. I don't think it wants to either.
Deep South in South America. It can't fly all the way to deep points in Europe. So again, they're kind of limited in what they can do. So an airline or a cargo hauler will have a diversified fleet so that they can get halfway around the world if they need to deliver cargo or to deliver passengers. So the only other airline that flies MD-11s in the U.S. is Western Global. I couldn't find any information on how many MD-11s they have, but if they've got them, they're going to have to ground them. All right, so 9% of UPS, 6.6% of FedEx. Why was there no emergency airworthiness directive issued for Air India 171? All right, some of you are thinking about that right now.
I read that. Yeah, I never saw one.
Thinking, hey, wait a minute, that airplane had passengers on board, and the fuel control switches were in question on that thing. Why didn't they issue an emergency airworthiness directive, ground the entire 7?
Maybe because pilot human error?
87 fleet around the world and go and inspect all those fuel control switches. Well, 2 airlines voluntarily did. Air India and Korean Air both voluntarily went and inspected all of their fuel control switches. They didn't find anything wrong with them. Many times what doesn't get done or what doesn't get said is just as loud as what does get done and does get said. So if you're thinking, well, the FAA is in the tank with Boeing and they're just out to protect Boeing, and I get a lot of that stuff in my comments, they aren't, right? Because this is going to
they don't pick favorites, I don't think.
A hurt to Boeing for them to ground the MD-11 fleet. If they had needed to ground the 787 fleet, they would have done it, folks. They would have done it, right? Their main purpose is
they don't give a shit about this land is better. This manufacturer's better. No, they don't really have favorites. They don't pick favorites because that wouldn't be professional. That wouldn't have been good life for the FAA. So they have to do everything equally because they're basically like the judiciary system for aviation.
public safety and to make sure that those airplanes are safe. There was absolutely nothing wrong with that 787 that crashed in the Air India Crash 171. That's why they didn't issue, even go out and voluntarily inspect the airplanes. They knew that there was nothing wrong with those airplanes. There was a different cause at play there for why those fuel control switches transitioned from run to cut off just after rotate. So you ever wonder the question, how does a crew on an airplane find out that their airplane has been grounded? Because when they come out with this airworthiness directive, they don't give any advance notice, it's just they issue it. And from that moment, that second forward,
I'm guessing that they take land at the closest available airport.
Every airplane is grounded. Well, what if you're already in the air? What if you're taxiing out? What if you're landing and coming into a gate? Well, you're going to get a message that looks like this in the cockpit.
ACARS message. UPS 0329 dash 08 Sierra Juliet Uniform dash Sierra Delta Foxtrot. Part 1 of 1. Please return to block per UPS MD-11 or not to depart effective immediately. End of part 1.
It comes over your ACARS screen, and it's an ACARS message, which is basically texting for airplane.
Don't text and fly, kids.
Where anybody on the ground can, not anybody, but your dispatcher can text you a message, and this one reads.
Yeah, don't text and fly, kids. You'll die.
That it's part 1 of 2, but it says, please return to block per UPS MD-11 are not to depart effective immediately. So if you're taxiing out and you get that message, guess what? You're going to turn around and go back to the gate. If you're airborne, you're going to go to your destination and land, and that's going to be it. So again, these are interesting things, something you don't normally see, but we got a picture that somebody took of an actual ACARS screen when they issued this airworthiness directive, and at that point then they've got to land the airplane or they've got to taxi back to the gate. No more flying for the MD-11. The entire MD-11 fleet is now grounded until further notice. How is it going to impact the holiday season here coming up? Well, it's not going to be a good news for UPS and FedEx. They're going to have to scramble at this point to find capacity to carry all the boxes and cargo that needs to go during the busy holiday.
Once lock in and double use their fleet
season. I'm certainly sure that they will find it.
Pack it to the brim.
But it's also going to impact all the other airlines. Is it going to impact the passenger business? No.
Like you see, like all the empty space in like cargo planes, right? Don't use it. Don't make sure there's no empty space left.
I don't.
Why does it say like that?
But the cargo business, yeah, absolutely. There might be longer delays this year, and you're probably going to see a little paragraph or a sentence when you check the tracking on your box that says, due to airworthiness directives from the FAA, expect longer than normal transportation times for your box. It may take longer to get there. That's a small inconvenience compared to the importance of keeping these airplanes safe and flying, and certainly the 14 families that have been impacted by the fatalities here are not interested in the least about anybody else's packages getting any place on time. So we want to make sure that there's not another 14 families that are impacted or even more somewhere down the road. The FAA is doing the right thing. This is an airworthiness directive. You don't see them very often. Now you know the impact of it and why the FAA issued it over the weekend. As we get more details about the fleet and what's happening, especially with this crash in Louisville, we'll come right back to you with those details. Well, now you know. I'm Captain Steve. Fly safe. So if you'd like to see some other videos about...
Yes, fly safe. Do be safe. Whether you're on the ground, in the air, in the water, in the ground. I'm sorry. Thank you all so much for watching. I know this is a bit longer video. Over an hour now. We appreciate all y'all. I don't even know how. Like my first video on this already has 300 views, and it's been out for 4 days. How? I don't know. But thank you all so much for watching. We appreciate it. My name is Kit Kat. Thank you all so much for watching. Peace out and have a good rest of your day or night.